When the wheel of fate is turning and the mills of God grind slow, when the past seems more attractive than the future we don't know, when our confidence is waning and we lack security, comes the timeless word of Jesus that the truth will set us free. Is it war or economics? Is it danger or deceit? Is it unforeseen depression, fear of failure to compete? Have the times which once were changing led where no one wants to be? Shall we live by lies on offer, or the truth that sets us free? With real faith there will be doubting, and with loss there will be grief. No one knows the contradictions which will exercise belief. Against conflicts life might bring us, God provides no guarantee. Just this word of hope and healing, know that truth will set you free. So dear Jesus, make us willing to unmask convenient lies, to protest wherever power closes conscience, ears and eyes, and release our expectations of your kingdom yet to be. Born of courage, joy and justice, and the truth that sets us free.
What's diluting our imagination to think that we can mow and control everything? And what are we missing out from that dilution?
The reason I love contemplative studies is because it dampens my own arrogance, my own desire to control. I think it's endemic. We have a fear of the unknown. And so if we control things, if we control nature, if we control our lives, our pathway, and our careers, we're less afraid of this journey that we don't know where it began and we don't know where it's going to end. And the fear of that's always subliminal, always there, gives us this impetus to control whatever we can.
Talk about contemplative prayer, isn't it supposed to be quiet?
No, it's not supposed to be quiet. When I wrote the book Joy Unspeakable, Contemplative Practices of the Black Church, my friend said, there's no such thing. So how are you going to get a book out of that? And I had seen it, so I knew that it existed. Contemplative prayers are usually seen in a setting of silence, monasticism, being set apart, when in fact for people of color, and I don't know whether it is because of psychological trauma, usually it is the group that is receiving the contemplative moment. There's a song in the Black church called "Oh Jesus," and those are the only words of the song. And the song can go on for 20 minutes. And the people just moan, "Oh Jesus, oh, oh Jesus, oh, oh," and it goes on. And the musicians get more complex and the moans and people weep. There is no question in my mind that that is entry into sacred places for a contemplative moment. It's one that arises in the drum beat. There's a scholar named Olu Taiwo.
Does it arise in a John Deere?
And what he says is there is a return beat. There's a space between each moment. As you move your hand up and down as you're hitting a drum, there's this breath, this moment. There's a space between our breaths. There's this ineffable moment, this moment that can't be described, that is a contemplative moment. So we're having them all the time. We're having contemplative moments with the television on. We're having it with the lawnmowers going. It is that breath that we won't voluntarily take that is seeded into our very being, so that whether you ever contemplate anything, you're having it as you breathe.
What's dismembered us from that connection to that breath?
Pain. I think that being quiet for quiet contemplative prayer is difficult if you have been traumatized. Because the way you keep pain enclosed and encased within you is by not stopping, going from morning till night, falling out in your bed, getting up and doing it again and again until you're ill or can no longer do it. But what you're trying to do is not think about what hurts, how you've hurt others. You don't want to think about any of it. So people have always said, well, the contemplative moment is difficult because then all of it rises to my conscious level and I can see and hear what I have been unwilling to heal.
And contemplative prayer is relevant when you're just trying to survive?
Oh, absolutely, because it's not quiet necessarily. You can do it quietly, or you could go to a drumming class and have the drumming take you into another place. You can do it like the Gullah ancestors in my family, with a ring shout, dancing around in a circle without crossing your ankles. You can do it in any number of ways. I do all of my contemplative writing with a television on. I'm not listening to it, but it's a rhythm of life. I want, when I'm writing, for my words to be grounded in reality, in everyday life. I don't want it to be esoteric and weird and intellectual. I want to be speaking the language of the people. And so it helps me to hear Maury muttering in the background or CBS News or something, because it always reminds me, whatever's coming up in you, say it in plain English. Don't try to add flourishes. Don't let your degrees overlayer the sentences. Just speak to the people about what you're hearing in the Spirit. It's an invitation to everyone. It's not for one group of people. As I said, we're all one tribe. It's an invitation to all of us.
How does contemplation birth prophetic proclamation into action?
Prophetic proclamation and action that derives from our own interests, our own anger, our own decisions about what should be changed or what should be, doesn't last very long. And so by allowing the inner self to guide the action, to allow the Spirit to speak through you, by that inward turn, through that inward turn, then you're more likely to make better choices about how you present in society, how you oppose oppression, how you supersede your own fears. There are pictures of a young woman in a flowing dress standing in front of police officers in military gear, completely peaceful, in contemplation, with her dress blowing and them threatening her, and she is at peace. Even if they had shot her, you can't kill peace. Peace is endemic. Anyone who saw that photo knew what contemplation in the midst of crisis is, and that it can keep you, it can hold you, like Brian Schwinn talks about gravity holding you. Peace will hold you, even in the face of amazing threat. And so if you can abide in this place that you don't have to catch a plane to get to, it's with you all the time. You can turn inward. You can listen instead of talk. You can hear what comes next. You can hear the discerning voice that says, not that, this. I mean, that old film, The Apostle, where the actor is walking to the road going, which way, Jesus? This way or that way? Okay, so that's a fundamentalist view of tell me which candy bar to pick or which road to walk down. But you have an inner guide. You have a guide that keeps you straight. It's a spiritual guide. If you don't listen to it, you'll often make mistakes you don't have to make. But all you had to do was stop in the midst of threat, in the midst of indecision, in the midst of just confusion, everyday confusion. Stop and allow the gift of inner peace to hold you.
Then I guess it doesn't matter what path you take.
It matters because you can make your journey so much longer than it has to be. I mean, I have found that things I rejected that I should have accepted came around to me again later in a different way. But boy, it was such a long, unnecessary route. When if I had been listening instead of talking, and if I'd been discerning, the path would have been more direct. I mean, you think about the Hebrew children in the desert wandering for all those years. I mean, if you take a look at a map, there's a more direct path. You know, you didn't have to. The direct path is, well, in that instance, I think it's a poor example because some of the generations had to die out in the desert in order for inhabiting the new land to be a real inhabitation and newness. So spiritually, some of that old stuff had to die. So I think that's why Spirit took them the long way. But often we take the long way because we don't hear which way to go. This way, Jesus, that way, Jesus. We don't listen. So taking that mysticism out of the story of human life makes it difficult to negotiate life, makes it difficult to journey. Because if you have a story of where you're going, then you don't have to cling to certainties. You don't have to create an arrogance of control. Because I'm comfortable knowing that when it's my time to transition, that the elders will come and get me, that I won't have to walk into the light alone, that they will be with me, and that there will be joy. And I often say joy unspeakable and full of glory.
The Easter season is one of the most thematically difficult in the Christian calendar, because on one hand, it's the story of Jesus choosing martyrdom, and on the other, it's the most joyous part of our faith, the resurrection. But if we don't deal with the hard parts, we never discover the full wonder and joy of the uplifting parts. Matthew's retelling of the parable of the sower is all about dealing with one of the hardest truths of Jesus' ministry. Not everyone will fully understand the gospel. Matthew uses Isaiah to help drive this point home. You will be ever hearing, but never understanding. You will be ever seeing, but never perceiving. For this people's heart has become calloused. They hardly hear with their ears, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn, and I would heal them. It's hard to hear that some people won't get the gospel. The way of living in love and living for others wouldn't be recognized instantaneously as the way to live someone's life. But this is a theme that pops up over and over in the story of Jesus. There's the story of the young rich man, recorded in Matthew 19. Then someone came to him and said, "Teacher, what good deed must I do to have eternal life?" And Jesus said to him, "Why do you ask me what is good? There is one who is good. If you wish to enter into life, keep the commandments." He said to him, "Which one?" And Jesus said, "You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness. Honor your father and mother. Also, you shall love your neighbor as yourself." The young man said to him, "I have kept all these. What do I still lack?" Jesus said to him, "If you wish to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me." When the young man heard this word, he went away grieving, for he had many possessions. Grieving. He's the only person to leave Jesus grieving. People leave happy, people leave mad. He's the only one to leave sad because he's not willing to give up his stuff. Now, Jesus wasn't trying to make him mad or sad. He was trying to make him uncomfortable. Jesus wanted the young man to think about his priorities in life and how they would clash with his yearning to be part of the community of God. This young man had so much wealth, he could change people's lives. The young man chose, though, to leave sad. Our parable for today deals with the same things. The gospel is spread all over. The gospel's the seed, but it's not able to take root in every human heart. Part of allowing the gospel to take root within us is to sit in the uncomfortable moments the Spirit creates for us. Sometimes it's when we encounter the teachings of Jesus. Sometimes it's in daily life. I have a vivid memory from the Martin Luther King Jr. Sunday at one church where I played excerpts of him reading the letter from the Birmingham jail. The excerpts started with what people were familiar with hearing and looking out. Everyone was nodding along, smiling. But then his talk turned to how disappointed he was in white moderates in the white church. At the end, as the video came to a close, I looked out, and there were some people literally so shocked I could see the whites of their eyes. How could the person who gave the "I Have a Dream" speech and was all about racial reconciliation and love say that the white church was destined to failure if it didn't respond faithfully? That it was abandoning its gospel duty if it didn't stand up to fight segregation? He said it because he wanted the white church to sit in its discomfort. For white Christians to ask themselves why they thought and did the things they did. Why were they saying things like direct action, protests, boycotts are too confrontational, too much? Or, oh, this is just too soon. Yet turn around on Sunday morning and say, I love my neighbor. I do anything for my neighbor. I love the gospel. Those times when we hear a sermon or a scripture passage or have an experience that makes us feel guilty, shamed, or conflicted over what we think, feel, or have done, those are times when we need to invite the Spirit into our lungs and have a contemplative moment. A time where we should look within and search our feelings to find God's wisdom. It doesn't mean every time we feel guilty, shamed, or conflicted that we're wrong. But we have to take those feelings seriously, because they could be a time when we know the values of our heart are not meeting the values of our head. In reality, it's impossible to live in 21st century America and not have this happen from time to time. So much of what is happening in our society and has happened in our society's history is contrary to the gospel. And it's impossible for these anti-gospel forces to not unconsciously shape how we think or feel. So it's very important that when we encounter the gospel, when we hear stories or talk of God and God's love, but it creates discomfort, we need to remember that that's a good thing. It's the Spirit working within us, so we might turn from these social sins and toward God. None of us are good soil 100% of the time. Not you, not me, not nobody. That's why it's so important we stop and ask ourselves when we are discomforted, or even maybe sometimes when we're a little too comfortable, am I good soil?